the misleveled sidewalk is something that every pedestrian in New York City comes across, at least 100 times a week. Scott Occhiogrosso, a partner at Block O'Toole and Murphy. We're going to discuss trip and fall accidents involving uneven sidewalks. Yeah, there's a few things about it that, obviously when you hear about somebody falling 3 stories on a construction site, right away people think how bad, or you hear about somebody getting hit by a truck that's going 60 miles an hour, everyone cringes and winces at how horrible an accident. Trip and falls on sidewalks don't draw the same reaction, and for a few reasons. One is the average person, we aren't exposed to the dangers of falling off of a scaffold that's 3 stories high, and many of us have near misses when we're on the road. But the misleveled sidewalk is something that every pedestrian in New York City comes across, at least 100 times a week. So it's common to all of our experiences. So it's a lot harder for people to accept, one, that the accidents happen, that somebody trips on a misleveled sidewalk, and 2, that somebody can be severely injured from tripping on a misleveled sidewalk. These are sort of built-in challenges when handling these cases. We say in industry talk, we just say that they're not particularly sexy. It's not a sexy case. In normal circumstances in New York City, the adjacent property owner to where the sidewalk is located is legally responsible for maintaining the sidewalk in a safe condition. While the property owner has a non-delegable duty to maintain that sidewalk in a safe condition, and when I say the property owner, I mean whoever owns the building. That sidewalk is in front of a particular building. Whoever owns that building. It's usually, in New York City in particular, the owner of the building is renting the building to a business that's operating out of that space. So while the target of the case, the initial target of the case would be the owner of the building, in just about every circumstance I've ever come across, they have a lease agreement with the business that's renting the space that says that the business is responsible for maintaining the sidewalk. So that business owner then will become an additional target. And beyond that, there are certain circumstances where, we see uneven sidewalks in New York City all the time, and it's sort of such a common thing that very few of us ever give any thought to, well, how do sidewalk flags end up uneven? One of the reasons is sometimes there may be a business that's operating in that area that routinely wheels or hauls heavy materials across the sidewalk. Sometimes even if there's construction in the building, sometimes there are even construction vehicles that drive up onto the sidewalk with a ton of weight in them over a sustained period of time. Something like that can actually cause that misleveling of the sidewalk. So then in a circumstance where you're able to discern, was there a construction project, who was responsible for bringing the materials on and off, then that ultimately could be an additional target. Another reason that adjacent sidewalk flags are sometimes misleveled is that there could be a portion of sidewalk that is damaged or in disrepair and is replaced, but it's only up to a certain point, right? I think that's a common way that you end up with mislevel in sidewalks, is a repair of one part of it with different materials so that when it cures, it shrinks, and while it was leveled when it was first poured, it doesn't stay leveled over time. If somebody trips and falls and it's because of an uneven sidewalk, the most critical evidence is photographs of the defect. Really, without that, the case really can't go forward. And obviously, also critical in a case like this is witnesses. Any witnesses to the accident certainly go a long way. one of the things that's important to note is that there are certain protections in place for property owners in the law when it comes to uneven sidewalks. There's a defense that's called, where they describe it as a de minimis defect, and the law generally interprets it to be if the missed level of the sidewalk is a half an inch or less, then the law generally says that that's not enough of a defect to bring a case, no matter how badly somebody claims to be hurt from this defect. I think that's in recognition that there's just so much misleveling of sidewalks in New York City because of these factors. Different portions of the sidewalk poured at different times, and listen, I don't need to go into it. Just take a walk on a New York City sidewalk, and you know, you can't walk a block without seeing 6 or 7 things where you say to yourself, if I wasn't paying attention, I could have tripped on that. So the law does allow for some protection and recognition of that. The other way I think about it is, yes, these are common defects, and yes, we all navigate them every day, but that doesn't mean it's not a dangerous condition. And the person who gets hurt is the one who's unlucky enough to not have successfully navigated that dangerous condition. It doesn't mean the dangerous condition didn't exist for the rest of us. It just means that, you know, if you don't do something to fix it, eventually there is going to be a victim. And there are those circumstances where that victim ends up hurt really badly. And you know, the other thing about it is that the same way people say it's a minor defect, it's a minor repair to correct the defect also. So there's that to consider also. If you or someone you know, a loved one, somebody close to you is involved in an accident involving a misleveled sidewalk, and the person is unfortunate enough to suffer severe injuries, please feel free to contact the attorneys at Block, O'Toole and Murphy. We've handled these cases many times with extremely successful outcomes.